It is Midweek Extra. We are in association with NordVPN. More from them later. But before all that, I have got Phil Blundell, I've got Emilia, Bona, and I've got Paul Senior. And we're going to be looking back to the Galatasaray game, but also forward to Chelsea. But in part two, be a bit wider picture on what we think is going wrong for the Reds at the moment and what potential quick fixes, because we haven't got long before Chelsea, that could be potentially made to rectify things. But first of all, Phil, most importantly, you went to Istanbul. Did you have a nice time?
I had a lovely time, John. It's
that
absolutely,
is the most important thing.
It's just an unbelievable city. There's so much going on. The food's incredible. Just the general, everything is great. It was a bit of a pain in the arse getting to and from the ground, because I think we left 4.5 hours before kick-off and got back 2.5 hours after full time.
Yeah.
It was quite a long time to be occupied, but
it was definitely one to do a longer trip.
Yeah, it was one of those where basically, cause we got there about 7:30, 8 o'clock on Tuesday, and I was like, I wish I'd come on Monday, sorry, and I was like, I wish I'd come yesterday, or like a lot of the younger lads did and went straight from Palace on Saturday. I think that would have been a much better idea, I think. But I'm sure I'll get the opportunity to go to Istanbul again, and the next time we go, I will be taking the opportunity again, because it's absolutely fantastic.
No, I wanted to book on and didn't, so I regretted it. Yeah. Every moment I was on my Instagram over the last few days, it looked like everyone had a ball, everyone stayed safe as well, which is brilliant. But the Reds lost. Again, 2 in a week. I wouldn't quite say they're making it a habit at the moment, but they've certainly done it a couple of times. How do you reflect on the game as a whole, a couple of days on?
I fully lost my head, I must say, on the night of the game, and then morning after you start putting things back into context. I think I was surprised to hear how little we'd won in Turkey. I think it was only Roy Hodgson, wasn't it? Of all people.
That famous night in Trabzonspor.
Yeah.
To say what you want about Roy, he had a good Europa League record.
No, he did, and had to make some vital substitutions and stuff at some point, didn't he? But I think. I don't know. There's concerning things. I think actually, Phil, you made a point in a WhatsApp group that sort of calmed me down a bit, that the ball was never in play. It's when the ball was in play that I was concerned. Yeah. And the amount of misplaced passes, how scruffy we look, and for a team that's top of the Premier League and just won the Premier League, they look awfully low on confidence. And I don't know where that's coming from. Obviously, it's been a difficult summer for the club and whatnot, but obviously they start and not spectacularly, but getting the results, and to see the performance levels seem to get worse in time. I don't quite know where that's coming from.
Yeah, it was always going to be a tough night, Emilia, and the atmosphere and everything that was there. The noise that they're making, Phil doing fuck all. Do you know what I mean? It's like for the Reds.
So high up, John.
Yeah. I'm just saying we can only hear them. But no, and then the second half, as Paul and Phil have both said it in separate places. Paul here, Phil on his phone. The fact that the ball's just sort of not in play, but then there's ways to deal with that, and there's ways to combat that, and this is what's frustrating me at the moment a little bit about Liverpool, is that we're making things harder for ourselves.
Yeah, and I think those are both things that were to be expected, or at least the atmosphere anyway is to be expected, and both of those things are things that this Liverpool team should be able to deal with. You knew what the atmosphere was going to be like going into it, and even if you can say it's an atmosphere and a kind of a ground that a lot of those players won't ever have experienced anything quite at that level. I've never heard or seen anything like that in my time supporting Liverpool, because it's just completely different. It's different to anything that we're even able to kind of show teams when they come to us. But they knew that was going to be the case, and they should rise to the occasion. And then in terms of the kind of the frustrating way in which there's the stop-start nature of it, we should be able to deal with that. And we have faced teams that do that. So I don't understand why we aren't able to kind of adjust our course very early on into the game when we realise that that's the case, and then do something about it.
I mean, the funny thing about early in the game, though, is that we were creating chances, and these games are on a bit of a knife edge, a lot of them, probably on too much of a knife edge, and you want games to not be on a knife edge. You want to come out and go, there was only ever going to be one winner with that. Part of the problem with Liverpool is in pretty much every game that we played so far this season, all three results could have been possible, and you win games by firepower, and you win games by having a strong bench and belief and winners and things like that. So I'm not saying it's all down to a roll of a dice, but I think you have to accept that when every game you play is on a bit of a knife edge, you might end up losing. So we've lost a couple in a row, and I think but we did create chances, I guess is what I'm saying, and there was early opportunities, you know, I'm watching and thinking, oh, we're getting through them sort of so easy now, and they did look like they had a bit of confidence then, but then the confidence seems to drop out of them when it's not going well.
Yeah, I mean, knife edge is a really good way of putting it, because I think the one that gets cleared off the line 23 seconds before the penalty, that goes in. I think we probably win. I genuinely think we win 4-0 if that goes in.
Does really well
we sit here having a completely different conversation, because I think it's similar has happened in the last 2 games, in that I think we've started broadly, maybe not brilliantly, but all right. Like if you pause both games after 15 minutes in the last, you know, Palace and Tuesday night, you go, okay, it's a consummate away from home performance. We start all right. We've done a bit with the ball. We've, in the case Galatasaray, creates a few chances, and then you get sucker punched to find yourself 1-0 down, and the game is like completely changes in terms of, you know, Galatasaray were then able to sit in, they're able to frustrate us, they're able to make it really compact. Like I was looking up and couldn't see where the space was. There's usually always space. There was no space anywhere. Every time someone got the ball, there was a man on them, and there were 2 men cutting off angles. I don't really understand how they did it, how they managed to do it. Like there was a point where I was like, I might have to count how many of them are here, because they were that good at making it really compact. But it changed the game. It meant they could do the breaking up of play, and the amount of time that they managed to waste was, you know, was incredible. And I'm not doing it as a complaint from on their behalf, because that's how you should do it if you're them. That their duty is to try and win a football match, and they do what they need.
Well, especially if you're going to get away with it.
It's the away team,
exactly.
But used home advantage in terms of what they've got with the crowd.
Yeah,
100%.
I think when I seen the midfield, you see Torreira and Lemina, I thought, there's going to be a battle on here. And then I looked at our midfield and I realised we weren't playing one. And that was my frustration, is because I thought, you've got a square peg and a round hole at right back, but you've got a round peg on the pitch playing right wing, so why didn't you just get the balance back in the team? And it was quite clear we were losing the midfield battle.
But
so
also first half, there was a lot of Frimpong feeling like he was playing right back, like he was on top of Szoboszlai at times, like to the point where Szoboszlai's like, no, you need to go over there.
It's interesting. I want to say on the Frimpong one, when we signed him, a lot of people were saying he's not a right back, and so I think he has been signed to play both. And I think
that's sound though, John, if you play a right back.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
and that is my point. Is like the midfield is where the game is going to be won, and you've got a lad who's quite lightweight playing in the number 10, which historically we've not played, and then you've got Gravenberch almost just trying to run a midfield on his own. So the easy solution there for me was to just play Szoboszlai in the 3 and play Frimpong at right back and get the best of Frimpong going forward, and just tell Szoboszlai he has to get back. And I think that you'd have found a bit more balance. And what we did do is lose both battles and also not get much output from a lad who looked like a right back playing right wing.
I felt like when the team sheet came on, you're looking at it, and it was before the manager had said, oh, Szoboszlai's right back and Frimpong. You're looking at it going, this could be 4 different things. Like there was part of me that was like, that might work best as a diamond with Frimpong at right back and Gakpo as a sort of not a centre forward but more of a essential base player. That was, it felt like we took the players selected and maybe put them together in the 3rd or 4th best way, which just didn't really feel ideal.
If you don't want to play Salah, surely you could just go to Gakpo, do a job on the right there, or you know, put Szoboszlai in the middle, Wirtz on the left. Even if you're there the 11, you just want to get on the pitch with one eye on Chelsea. I think there was other ways to.
But even Szoboszlai can play that right thing. He's done that. He did that for Leipzig.
I understand what you're saying, but I think focusing so much on how the way we set up lets us down does almost kind of underplay how well they were able to deal with it, in terms of like they're not just isolating us on the right, they're doing it on the left as well, and there's a player they're playing in the position that we've brought him to play in. So I think it's that they were just very good at isolating us.
But I think that my point is more, Emilia, is that I think it was clear where we were losing the game, and it was in the middle of the park. So where Phil says he thinks I'm having to count how many of them there are, go and put your energy back in the midfield. And that's my major criticism of the manager from the other night, is if I can see that half the world can see that, why aren't you just he didn't even, if you've got it wrong from the get-go without making a sub, he could have fixed it on the pitch, and he didn't, and that surprises me because he's so astute tactically for him not to just go, do you know what, I can just make this work again. listen, he's a Premier League champion manager, and I'm some dickhead on fan media. but I
The best fan media.
Yeah,
but also not just fan media.
But you know what I mean? I just thought that's an obvious change to make. Get Szoboszlai in the middle and let's get a grip of the game, let's get on the ball, let's calm this down a bit. And instead, I didn't think we did anything to address it.
I'm struggling at the moment, Emilia, to... look, you're talking about the last 2 games mainly, but to know whether it's systematic issues or it's picking the wrong team or it's just individual errors. And, you know, we could talk about formations and things like that, but I would quite like Canate to stop passing to them. And I don't think that's a formation thing. I don't think that's it. Always looking up and there's a player not there. Sometimes it's just basic passes. McAllister's coming on and doing the same. And there just seems to be a lot of individual errors in our game at the moment that I don't think you can necessarily just put down to the fact that they're all a bit unsure about where people are.
No, I think it is. It's both, but that makes it worse in that it's individual errors like that, like Vert's looking a bit slow, like McAllister looking unfit, like people just looking like they're not quite ready to do the job that we want them to do. And then also a combination of the manager seemingly feeling like he wants to wear all of the clothes he got for Christmas Day at the same time and the outfit doesn't quite work. So it's like all of the constituent parts aren't fitting together very well, but also they're individually not working very well. So it isn't clicking.
It isn't clicking at the moment, but I think the errors are frustrating, and they're frustrating in terms of, you know, you're talking before about, you know, the opposition being able to waste time. Well, they'll struggle if you've got the ball. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If you pass it out for a throw in, then they can take a minute. You can do the old Ashley Cole with the water bottle in 2014. We've just done that on my favourite season, so it's fresh in my mind, unfortunately. But you can take your time over that. You know, if you give the ball away and then the fella buys a free kick or whatever, you know, you can allow them to do that. The best way to build pressure is to with the ball and to keep the ball and to keep moving it. And even if you aren't necessarily creating chances, you might create an opening or at least, you know, move people about and work them. We're not able to do that at the moment, and it feels it's as much around sloppiness than it is around us not quite knowing how we should be attacking.
I'd love to see how many times we strung 10 passes together without going back to the goalkeeper, because it felt like someone would either panic or go, hang on, I've got nothing to do, I'm going to have to go back and we'll start again. And it's easy to say you start again, but if the goalkeeper's got the ball, you're not really starting again, are you? You're just moving everything further forward and marking everyone and making it more difficult. And then when someone got the ball, there was a rash decision of panic, of sort of, well, there's no one for me to give the ball. Like there was one Canate first half where he had the ball and he probably took half a second too long. Could have fed Gravenberch, could have fed Szoboszlai, could have played Frimpong in. Took that little bit too long and had to empty up the pitch and they get the ball back. And it was like, I feel like it's almost quite close to being quite good, but it's that far away visually. It doesn't feel like it because it's so out of kilter what we expect. There's a real like familiarity. I think one of the two you mentioned, one of the three of you, there's three of you, mentioned familiarity a minute or two ago in terms of like the best football teams know where their teammates are. Yeah, they can blind pass. They know where everything is. It doesn't feel like we've got to that point yet, and a lot of it is to do with the fact that Gravenberch and whoever's playing with him feel like they're covering a lot more grounds, and we're trying to be very wide. Like Arsenal are very compact and very close together, and they control games by all the players being near each other and make it very difficult, etc., etc. Ours at the minute feel like they're trying to be two men in the midfield, lots of width, the fella over there, defenders over there, and it just feels like it's too spread out to fit together, and that might eventually work, but at the minute it just isn't, is it? But the more I've thought about this game, the more I've thought it's not as far away as I probably thought on Tuesday at midnight or whatever.
There's good moments in games, which is where I can see where Phil's coming from. There's sometimes where you can see, oh yeah, when this clicks, this will look really great. It's just quite painful watching it click, especially when you're watching, you know, it breaking down, attacking, and then you're seeing the defensive errors. It is good. You can see the process, and you can see that they're good footballers, and you can see how, you know, when Bert in particular clicks with other players, how it can or potentially will look sort of really good, but sometimes watching the process can be quite painful, especially when you're losing games.
I think, I think it all comes back to a number of things, what people have already said, really, but I don't think Vert is necessarily the problem. I think it's what's happening around him. It isn't really enabling him to shine, and So, I think my dad used to harp on about when I was a kid. It was like win the midfield and win the game, and I don't think we're doing that. And I think if you've got that end, Liverpool's midfield last season was so simple. You had McAllister and Szoboszlai, tons of energy, decent technical footballers, and then if it got past them, Gravenberch would sweep up the bits and get us back in the front foot, because for a lad in his role, he'll go his first pass is forward rather than sideways. This year you're asking so much more of Gravenberch because you're enabling Wirtz to be another attacker. But then you're missing McAllister so much. And I actually thought McAllister was our most important player last season, and he's nowhere near it.
Yeah.
So, and this isn't me digging Curtis Jones up, but I thought Curtis Jones is okay. Like, he's okay, but he's not Alexis McAllister. And that's a problem. So if you've got all of that going on, and then Szoboszlai's not there giving you what he gives you, you're so vulnerable. And then you've got the full-back issue, where you've changed both sides. And, you know, Trent, for all the things he didn't do right, there was a lot of stability he gave you. Robertson steady head, and then you've got Van Dijk and Konate who aren't so exposed. So it's all incrementally going wrong everywhere, and it's creating a big problem. And I just think, like, for the weekend, you've just got to get back to basics. So put that stability back in the team, even if, I thought Emilia's point about wearing your Christmas Day clothes is brilliant.
I'm stealing it for Sky. I thought, as soon as you said it, and I was like, I'm going to say that on Sky, giving no credit whatsoever.
You wouldn't be the first man, John.
Oh, that'll be even better. I'll say, as a lad, I know said. As one of my really clever male friends said on a podcast.
But no, it's a perfect example. It's like you're so excited to get all your new toys on the pitch.
Yeah.
But it's a shit show because you've got Barbie and G.I. Joe playing together, and it just doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? And like,
I've got to do a Christmas present reference here, and I'm concerned I've not got one.
I mean, maybe.
Something about some coal in your...
He's done toys, she's done clothes. I forgot left here.
Pull it together, John. When it's Paul makes the point there about, you know, some of the players you can normally really hold your hat on, not being there for us this season, and it ends up being like the new lads are going like, the new lads are struggling a bit, and they're like, well, you can really do with the old dependable, just to sort of help them through. When you're a new player, you know, it's always going to take you a little bit of time, and that's why you need the ones who have been there for a long time to really show up. And at the moment, obviously Salah doesn't start this game, but he's not started the season brilliantly. McAllister, you know, he's the Anfield Wrap embodiment winner of last season, really struggling. You know, Konate's having a poor season. Alisson was having a good season, but is now injured. And so, and in this situation where the new lads can't really rely too much on the old guard to pull them through, because they're struggling as well. But then, you know, there's not really one of the new lads who's come in and completely hit the ground running to maybe help some of the lads who've lost their friend in the summer. And so you might say, well, it's understandable because of what's happened, that maybe you want the new lads to bring the energy. But apart from maybe Ekitike, and even he's got himself sent off and now maybe injured, apart from him, none of the others have really sort of shown everything that they've got yet. And so, yeah, it all kind of combines to something that maybe is going to look like a little bit messy.
Yeah, and I think it's an impossible environment for one of the new lads to really show that and step up in that way. If, as you're saying, everywhere else things just aren't quite as tight as they need to be or as reliable as they need to be. And I really miss Andy Robertson when I felt that a lot on Tuesday. And I think it's difficult because in terms of the leadership on the pitch, you've got Van Dijk there and there's very little you can point to that he does wrong. But it did feel like there was some leadership missing in that performance. Yeah. And that's not something you
leadership can't just come from one man. It should be around the pitch.
Yeah, and I guess that's the point. If you're a really good leader, you don't even necessarily need to be there to be playing that big role for it to still be present. It's a lot of new people, so it's hard for that to exist. But I guess that was part of what concerned me as well, is that Van Dijk's there and is kind of like the figure that you're looking to go, you need to steady this ship, you impact the mood, you make sure that everything's going the way it needs to, but it just wasn't there, even though he has a decent performance.
Yeah. The manager's not going to abandon his idea though, and I think obviously I'm sat there in my head going, how can we make it look as much like it did last year to move forward? But that's regressive, but he does need to find a balance of both.
Yeah.
And I think that's currently the point Emilia made earlier, is like, you're trying to shoehorn too much in too quick. And we knew we'd made a lot of changes, But in certain environments, you need players to dig you out, and someone like Robertson's experience, and I don't, this isn't me slagging Kerkhoff because I think he's the least of our problems at the moment. But it can't all change so much because you're not the same team, and there's too much, and then the square peg and round hole argument that I've got and whatnot. It's just like, well, we've got no identity anymore, and there's a little bit of an identity crisis. So just stabilise it and blood them slower. So Slot's talking about he never rotated at all last season, and he's trying to do that. Well, start off with your team that won you the league and rotate in your new ones.
Yeah.
And you know, and if you're in the ascendancy, get them all on the pitch, get them to know each other. But it's too much too soon for me.
But it takes a confidence from him to do that, to go, look, I know we spent X amount on this lad, and I know, you know, you've previously been desperate for us to make these sorts of signings, but you're not going to see him yet. You're not going to see him for a while.
No one cares if you're winning that.
No, for sure. And that's why, like, it's not so much to dig out Kirk as to say I miss Andy Robertson. I guess what I miss is continuity, and Robbo feels like that. And there's kind of a handful of players that you can point to where you get that feeling of, okay, I know this Liverpool team, I know what we're doing, and the players on the pitch need that as well. The new lads need that feeling of, I understand what this team is meant to look like.
But if he's got concerns around Canate, John, which we all have currently, the easiest way to support him there is probably putting 3 other lads in a line next to him that he's comfortable with to get him out of it. Because Canate's a great centre half, who's in poor form, that's allowed. But when you're trying to accommodate, you know, a midfielder at right back and not Mo Salah, well, I'm very exposed on this right side here, and what's the midfield in front of me? Well, hang on, we're playing one less. I'm even more exposed, and I'm having a bad time at the moment. So how can we set this up in a way where I'm protected? And currently, he's nowhere even close to protected, is he?
Okay. Coming up in part 2, we're going to be 4 dickheads on fan media solving all the problems. That's something that we are looking forward to. And in part 3, we'll look ahead to Chelsea. Welcome back. I am still with Paul, Emilia and Phil. And we're going to look a bit about what can be done. There's not loads of time, Phil, between now and Chelsea, but he has got some options. You know, Paul talked before about, you know, not wanting to completely go back to basics, but he could do that for one game and then also look to have a bit of a think, or he could really stick to his guns and go again. The options sort of are there. We don't know completely the injury situation, but of a couple of players. But if we look first of all defensively, you know, against Palace we gave away a lot of balls in the channels. We give away a lot of Chelsea chances that way. Against Galatasaray, it didn't sort of look like it was sort of quite working either. Would your first step be looking to make us a bit more defensively resolute? And if so, how would you look to do that?
I'm not sure, because I feel like this game is really different to the last 2 in terms of...
I can't figure it out.
Osherman and Mateta are big, physical, handful centre-halves. Chelsea aren't going to play one of them. They could if Delap was available, but he's not. So it's probably going to be João Pedro, he's a drop-off and fill in the gaps and link play-up type of play. So logically it should be a different game of football. I think part of the problem is us giving the ball away. And most of the chances we seem to give away come from us making a bad decision. Like, even to the point where if you look at the goals we've actually conceded, it's a bit mad in terms of, I think there's 3 from open play in a way. The 2 against Atletico have been deflected and could both have been disallowed. The rest of them are set pieces, bar the Everton one and the first 2 against Bournemouth, which is insane really when you think about it. But most of the chances that we're going, oh, they should have scored there, aren't coming because we're being picked apart by teams. They're coming because we're making rash decisions, and all of a sudden you're 3 on 3 or something. And like the amount of times where we give the ball away and Palace were sort of running at us going, hang on, we're gonna create something here. It was mad to watch how we try and fizz a ball into midfield, and otherwise we'd lose it. The amount of times we were getting sort of dispossessed on halfway, where someone's tried to turn someone the other night, for example. It felt like it was about 6 or 7 counter-attacks started because someone's got the ball into them, tried to turn, lost the ball, and all of a sudden it's 3 on 3 or 4 on 3. We need to stop that. Probably need to be more careful on the ball, really. If we're more careful on the ball, things will suddenly just become a lot easier, I think. You know, but Saturday will just be a completely different game because we're not going to be playing a win the second ball game, because there's just not going to be second balls in the same way. So our problem seems to be when we're supposed to be the dominant side and there's an out ball, and we need to figure out a way of not necessarily winning the out ball but winning the second ball. The amount of times I've seen stuff the last couple of games and done second ball, and we just haven't won the second ball. I feel like we haven't won the second ball for 3 weeks. I'd like to see us win second balls. I'd like to see there be less second balls, which thankfully there probably will be on Saturday.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it, Emilia, because you want them to take more care of the ball, but you can overly concentrate on that and become a little bit blunt. And I don't want to see us go there and be so terrified of making mistakes that, you know, we don't look like we've got any threat. It is the balance, isn't it? And a manager can't just go, don't give the ball away, because it's not as easy as that.
Yeah, and I guess there comes a point where they know that we're all really frustrated by this, and as you say, it becomes something that then gets in their heads of like, everyone's... There's a pressure there to not be shit, which I know every single game should be the case, but there's a frustration around how easily they're giving balls away, and particular players especially, like some crosses that are just naff and that we should be better than. So, yeah, I don't know whether it's... I think Phil has convinced me that it's more a case of what they're doing rather than who's doing it. I think I had kind of thought if we just change up who's where, then maybe there'll be a different result, but it's actually more a case of how we're approaching it rather than who it is that's on the pitch.
I mean, he could make changes though, but to be fair to the manager on this, you know, you look at the centre halves, for example, Leone looks great but then gets injured, which is really unfortunate. I think if that hadn't happened, there might be a few people saying, well, let's see him. Joe Gomez is really poor in that 1 week start so far this season, so I can understand why there's maybe a reluctance to go there. You know, as fans sometimes it's like, well, he's the last person who played rubbish in my head to get him in the other, but Joe Gomez looks sort of miles off it. The full-back situation, you know, Bradley's had a funny season really. He started injured and then he has come in and he's looked good on occasion but shaky on the other. And so from a defensive point of view, there's not an obvious personnel switch apart from maybe Robertson, who I think will come back in Saturday.
Yeah, and to be honest, he's the one on left backs that, as I said earlier, is the least of my concerns really. It's more what happens at right back, and I think Conor Bradley should start. And then you've got to make a decision on Konate. And my one is if you're going to play a proper right back, then you can probably persist. But again, get Szoboszlai back in that midfield. Yeah. Just get Szoboszlai back. Get that. My biggest concern at the moment lies with McAllister. Completely, he looks like a League Two player at the moment, and he's one of my absolute favourites in the squad. So this is not me slating him, but he's miles off. Something's going on. They gave him that break at the end of the last season. Once we beat Tottenham, he scores the goal. You don't see him again, and then he goes into some sort of rehabilitation, which he doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders. I don't. The club haven't said what it is, and I know he's just had a baby and whatever, so could have stuff going on at home. But there's something with him that's not right. So I wouldn't put him anywhere near it personally. And I'm saying that I want our best midfield, and traditionally he's in it. He's probably the first pick in our best midfield for me. But I would just go with Gravenberch, Szoboszlai and Jones. And that would be my simple midfield. I think a lot of the time when things have been going wrong, he's brought Jones on as a sub and the midfield seems to have stabilised. But it's been with the other two back in the middle. So I that's what I would personally do. And just try and, from that point on, I don't care if you play Vert or Gakpo left. You know, I like... That's their luxury positions. Win the battle and then go and win the war. And the battle's going to happen, especially against Chelsea in the middle of the park.
Yeah, so the Szoboszlai right back thing's been quite interesting. He plays well there. He starts well there early in the season when it's a necessity. And I think what often happens, and loads of managers have done it, not just sort of Liverpool ones, and go, oh, well, that's worked well. Let's just sort of keep... The temptation is to keep going with it rather than going, well, fucking hell, got away with that. Let's sort of move them back in. And I keep thinking, well, surely the experiment's finished now. That's probably it for that. And then lo and behold, we sort of see it again. Do you think that is it for that? Because we do miss him a lot in the middle.
Yeah, I think there's some games where it works. I think Chelsea away is probably one of them where I would think it could and would. So I wouldn't necessarily be averse to it, but I'm not massively into it. I think it as you say, it worked a couple of times, it worked well, but that doesn't mean he's suddenly a right back. There's a chance they get in the first couple of minutes, isn't there, where the lad puts it straight to the goalkeeper, which he switches off for half a second. Probably not even that. And because he's not used to sensing the danger of the through ball as a right back, the lad ends up through on goal, and it's not a like, oh, you should be doing better. It's not natural to him. Yeah. And once you ask players to do things that aren't natural, you make the job that little bit harder. And I think there's signs that it's like he's obviously very good at it because he's a very good footballer. But there's some little things where it's a bit like you you're playing on the edge with it, I think. And I think I'd just put him in midfield. Like, I'd probably slightly different to Paul in that I'd probably just go midfield. I'd probably go him and Gravenberch next to each other and put Wirtz in front of them. I think the way the game should probably be a bit more open. And in terms of, because Chelsea on this sit back, they're going to leave space somewhere. I think Wirtz might be able to exploit that. But I'm not really as enthused about this right back thing as a lot of people are.
The whole thing about him being a good right back or not is almost moot to me, Emilia, because I just want him in midfield.
Yeah.
And so it's the thing of, like, you know, I think he's done well there, but, you know, whether, I think both Phil's points are right about, you know, instincts and stuff like that, but I'm always just like, you know, that's almost a debate for if the midfield was looking good, but it's not. And so I've been getting him back in there, especially this. I think Chelsea are strongest in midfield. You know, they're a bit of a mess at the back at the moment. They seem to just rotate defenders constantly. And you're like, oh, he's still there.
I need to rotate for Saturday.
Well, they might have to go back to the Sarli and go, oh, sorry, find out where he is.
Frank LeBeuf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's probably more likely to play at the moment. And then obviously up front, it's they've never quite got it right, so they've got players injured and suspended for this one. And so, but midfield, they're undeniably strong. They've got world class players there who they spent a lot of money on, and so I think Szoboszlai, getting him in there for the physicality, and then keeping him there up until you know there's more players who are back in form, and then we can start having debates about moving him about.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing. If you need someone to fight a fire because they just need to, fine, but then sticking with it seems to have been proven to be a mistake. It's an experiment that hasn't necessarily worked. I think there's another conversation to be had around the experiment that we had with Frimpong, and I know they're like totally different games, but thinking about there's 2 bad results. If there's a third one, then I think we can start to lose our heads a little bit. I know, like, some of us already have, but I just think they're...
How is your boss?
Bless him. But like, you could almost treat, I know it's 2 games, but you can treat them in isolation as unique kind of fixtures. If this result doesn't go our way, then I think it's valid to start really asking questions about what's happening. And that's why, yes, I agree, you have to put Szoboszlai back into the position that he's meant to be playing in, that he's fantastic in, that we need him most in, because rather than kind of asking him to do a job somewhere and doing a decent enough job, I'd rather have Conor Bradley there, for example, and just have him where we can make the most of him rather than go, can you please do the best that you possibly can in this position that isn't kind of the best of you?
I'm 100% with you so far on your team, Paul, and there's a few reasons for that, but one of them, I'm thinking, if Conor Bradley's right back, and I'd pick Jones and Szoboszlai ahead of Gravenberch, and I think that's for a lot of reasons, partly the balance, partly the midfield, but also I'm thinking if Bradley's right back and Szoboszlai's right midfield, it's a bit of familiarity for Mo Salah 100%. As well, because he's looked like he could do with some mates.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to step up, but he's not answering me calls.
No, not again. I agree, and like him and Van Dijk are still our 2 best footballers.
Yeah,
but it'd be nice for him to go and enjoy himself and maybe try and help our new record signing out a little bit as well, because I just feel like we're getting the worst of everything, and like what a first world problem to have when you're top of the Premier League. Well, like,
first time someone's mentioned that in this show.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just like it does feel like we're not getting the best out of him. Yeah. We're not getting the best out of him. Oh, it could be better if we look like that with him. And you go, well, we were meant to be excited about Wirtz and Isak and these new guys, and it just seems to be so built on sand currently that we just can't persist with it. And Liverpool really, ahead of the international break, need to change the music around the club a little bit, because I just think if it doesn't go as well as at the weekend, that sort of 2-week spotlight that nobody really wants on them.
Well, if they don't win, Arsenal will be top going into the
you'd
match.
So,
they're going to win that game, aren't they? So.
But that's it, isn't it? So you've got all of that. You've got just the narrative changes around Liverpool, and we know how important it is to sort of keep in the ascendancy, and this team dealt with it so well last year. So what you want at the weekend is just to go get a result at a very hard place to go. And normally, if you beat Palace, I'm all right with a point there at the weekend.
Yeah.
But now I'm not.
Yeah.
So we've put pressure on ourselves, not sort. And I know. Listen, I said on the show last week, I think it's the hardest place to go currently, Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
But Liverpool are better than Crystal Palace and should beat them.
Yeah.
So now you've got to go to Chelsea, who are also really good. But they feel more beatable. So go and beat them.
Well, they've lost more games, and that's the situation, isn't it? There is the chance to go out and beat them, and I think if we're good to do that, it is probably trying to get the best out of Mo Salah, because there's question marks elsewhere. I think who plays number 9 probably just depends on fitness. Ekitike goes off, but apparently it was just cramp, so you'd think, well, he should, in theory, be okay to start this game. Isak hasn't looked quite fit yet, obviously, and that's an understatement. So you'd hope to get a combination of the two of them on the pitch, and so 70 or 120 of the other, or whatever it is.
Thought that was percentages then for a second.
Minutes. But whoever he plays at 9, Mo hasn't necessarily got much of an understanding with yet. So I think giving him Szoboszlai and Bradley, I think, makes more sense to me, because he feels like the most likely match winner in this game, but hasn't really looked like it so far this season.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. He seems, a lot of our game feels like it's going down the left-hand side at the minute, and it's he's quite isolated from it. So it would be nice to get him a bit more back involved. I think the Szoboszlai playing right back makes takes a midfielder away from him, because I think Szoboszlai's natural inclination is to sort of be on that right-hand side anyway, and support him, whereas Jones and McAllister are not that same player, in terms of they've probably a bit less pace and aggression about them in terms of how they make runs and stuff. So I think that would be a lot easier for Salah. I think there's also an argument I think you could possibly do Ekitike and Isak if Ekitike is fit, and then Ekitike at the left. I thought it was really interesting that he goes with Isak, Salah, Ekitike, and Wirtz for. Can't have been very long. It must have been about 3 or 4 minutes or something. Yeah. I was like, I want to see what this looks like. And then unfortunately, he gets injured.
Looking forward to this.
I think he was probably injured before he's even pressed tweet or something like that. But it was really annoying, because I really want to see what that looks like, because I think that could be something to really enjoy, in terms of if Ekitike is at the left, and this is slightly contradictory with what I was saying a minute ago. But if they're focused on the left, Salah's going to be in a lot of space on the right-hand side. So there's opportunities for that. I think about the header that Bradley puts wide, and I'm thinking if that had been Mohamed Salah, because it was such a lovely ball in, and you see the ball go across, you're like, oh, I can see a green shirt, and I'm like, hang on, I'm going to score it. And then I was like, I didn't really want it to be the right back. Yeah, and that's not to have a go at Bradley, but
so there's Bradley and the Isak one, so 2 subs come on and
but doesn't this whole conversation highlight a little bit of the problem we've got? Is we can see all the options that the manager has, and we sort of can't settle on.
Can't figure out what to wear.
What to wear, so I'm in the Technicolor Christmas clothes or whatever it may be. I think that is part of the problem. It's not... I hate it when people go, he doesn't know his best 11, but I'm not sure he does. And I think that coming into a game against Chelsea last season, the team picked itself. And this season, I don't think we could honestly write the same 4-11s down here. I know you said, I'm a bit like what you want, Paul, but maybe I'd do something different on the left. There's so many options, and that's a great thing when it's working.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you just need familiarity, it's not such a good thing. And I think that's the biggest challenge facing the manager for the weekend and actually moving forward, is you've got to settle on what Liverpool look like and go forward with that. And then you can take 1 or 2 out rather than 5 or 6 all the time.
Do you feel quite optimistic about it, though? I do. Like, I came into this feeling a bit, woe is me, but actually now talking about options, I think, do you know what, there is...
You can't not be optimistic when you look at the squad.
Yeah.
I'm not optimistic looking at the performances, and I actually think he's the best tactician that's been in charge of this club for a very, very long time. And for him not to have figured it out yet surprises me, because I've seen him figure things out in games a number of times this season. And I don't know whether he just needs a bit longer with him to figure it out. If last season looked like this season, I'd understand it. Someone said the other day, Liverpool's transition season to the new manager is almost in the second season. But you set your own standards, don't you? And unfortunately for him, he's raised the bar so high that a period of transition sort of wasn't on our agenda coming into the season. It was just, well, we were amazing last year, so we must be amazing again. But we made so many changes, so a bit of familiarity, I think, might go a long way.
Maybe it was all Johnny Heitinga. Maybe that's something.
Ajax fans will disagree with that, mate.
I was like, he can't be the smartest man in the world. He played for Everton. He made that decision. Listen, we're going to do a little bit more looking ahead to Chelsea in part 3. Okay, we're back in the room with Paul, Anfield and Emilia, but just wanted to give a quick shout out to NordVPN before we get back stuck into this weekend's action. NordVPN is a fantastic service that I use, and I know a lot of you use as well. It's all about internet security. It's all about having that peace of mind when logging into public Wi-Fi's, but also I know lots of you out there are enjoying it because that ability to change your virtual location wherever you are and enjoy streaming services, anything that might happen that are happening in another country. I know for Phil, it was a big deal to keep up with Married at First Sight when he was in Istanbul, and so it's on every night. He wants to log in, see how everyone was getting on with that. So he was to bed early every evening away in Istanbul doing that, and that's what it can do. So your favourite streaming services, your favourite programmes that are happening when you go on holiday, you can still watch them. And also, if there's things happening in North London at Saturday at 3 o'clock that you can't watch in the country that you're in, even though you live there, but are being available to streamed in other countries, then with another subscription service, of course, you could change your virtual location to a country that is showing this thing, and you're able to watch it on your big screen, and isn't that lovely? So I think that's what most people are into in terms of our audience, and why you keep buying it and why they keep renewing. So thanks a lot to you guys. If you are enjoying NordVPN, it is nordvpn.com/TAW, nordvpn.com/TAW if you want to get yourself an exclusive price just for you. Okay. I'll do my first side chat with
Not
you.
now.
Not now.
That's
There's
a
too much
separate
to
show.
do.
Not watched anything, so you'd be going to the wrong man.
He's such a liar.
Yeah.
Such a liar. Paul talked a little bit about the left side there. There's some interesting choices there to be made. You know, if he does go for that more solid midfield, there's an option to play Verts there. He did that a little bit against Crystal Palace, although it looked a little bit more like a box. There's Gakpo, I thought did all right the other night. No better necessarily, but you know, has played most of the games there for the manager. And then there's Chiesa, there's Rio, and I'm sure there was people shouting at their screen/phone during the part two saying, what about those guys? They've been more substitutes and they've been good impact subs for the manager, but Chiesa misses out for the small injury. A lot of people saying, they're keeping him for Chelsea. I'm not really sure that's the case, but there are options there. What are your favoured ones?
I think they're keeping him for Chelsea, John.
Yeah.
No, before we came down here, I whispered to Phil, why wasn't Chiesa there? Because I needed him to explain to me that there was a small injury. I didn't realise. I like him. I would like to see him. I don't know how rational or reasonable that is, but I do really like him. He excites me. I think we've had quite a lot of luck with bits of madness, which I feel like he plays into well, and kind of last-minute strokes of luck, which again, I think he plays into well. But I actually don't know what the correct answer is. I just like him.
I like him. I like him off the bench, and I think for me, if you've got a really good sub, I don't think you necessarily then have to turn him into a starter. I think we've just got a great sub.
You took the words out of my mouth there. I think you've got a lad who's impacting games and getting goals, and you know he scored a winner. He scored an equaliser, which obviously didn't turn out to be one that got us a point, but he's been high impact. I think that's probably where he is in the squad. And listen, I think we can improve on Gakpo in the long term, but for now, I think he is the starter. We need to embrace it. And what my thing with Gakpo is, I'm in a bit of a rock and a hard place. A lot of the time, I don't like the performance, but I like the output. And I know we're not currently getting the levels of goals he was scoring last season, but he can finish. And in a team that looks a bit blunt currently, there's not many more people I want a chance to fall to than Cody Gakpo. So I'm all right, and especially in the game where I think it's going to be fine margins at the weekend, if the ball just happens to drop at the back post and Gakpo's there, I'm almost certain he'll put it away.
Where are you with it, Phil, left side?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would, over the course of the season, I think I would want it to be Ekitike, Isak and Salah as the first go-to front three, but I think there's probably arguments about Isak is probably not able to do 90 in a game of this level. Ekitike's obviously gone off injured, so you'll probably be looking at a combination of the two of them taking up the 90 minutes, wouldn't you? And then I think Gakpo, it depends what you do with Verts, doesn't it, in terms of if it's, I think I'll probably put Verts on the left ahead of Gakpo if we go if we go with the midfield that Paul has suggested. Or
do you want it to look different though than it did at Palace? Or do you think that was a design, or do you think that was just how it ended up being because of the players?
I think when you go 1-0 down after 15 minutes, was it 15-20 minutes against Palace, something like that, wasn't it? Any sort of plan you have goes out the window. So I would like to, basically, my starting point is not go 1-0 down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the narrative about the last two performances has been driven by the fact that the game has changed massively, and we've played two teams who are very good at being organised and make it difficult for us. And we're then in a situation where well, we've got the point. You've got to come and take them off us, and it was really hard doing. It wasn't a position we would go 1-0 down in games last season, but we weren't in a position where it would be like battering a door, not necessarily battering a door down, but having to sort of work out how to get them. And probably not ideal teams to go 1-0 down to. So I'd like to primarily don't go 1-0 down. That would be my starting point, but just move the ball quicker, stop giving the ball away. And I think if we're less sloppy in possession and don't go 1-0 down, that will go a long way to making this football team better. And it's one of those things that sounds really easy, but when you're watching them do it, it's like, this just feels like the hardest thing in the world. And that's been the problem for me. The last two games, we've found like you're making this look like a million times harder than everything is.
It's hard to get into their mindsets at the moment, Emilia. I keep thinking about, I mentioned before what happened in the summer, which I think some people are forgetting about it a little bit because the start was so strong, but we'll still be with them. There's the familiarity thing that we've all talked about. There's them going onto the pitch, maybe not being quite sure, as Paul said before, what is it we're trying to do at the moment. They'll be feeling a little bit unsure and a little bit uneasy. I think it is fair to say, but there'll also be, you'd imagine, a huge determination to put it right. There's big players within the squad who've won a lot for Liverpool. Even the others who come in are proven winners and used to play at the very highest level. And there should be, and I'm sure there will be, a huge determination within this squad to put on a performance and a good win on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's why the confidence element of Tuesday is kind of most surprising, because it's a Liverpool team who should, in theory, be able to arise to an occasion like that really easily, but it's also somewhere very different. And it's not, Tuesday wasn't a fixture that they go into as kind of like plucky upstarts that have somehow managed to find their way into that competition and no one expects them to go far and isn't it nice that they've had a go kind of thing. It was the opposite. And I think that's why I'm actually a bit more optimistic about the weekend, because in terms of familiarity for some of them, we've done this before, we know the team that we're up against, and while they're all still getting to know each other and getting to know how we're going to set up, I kind of think they've got much more of a basis to go into the weekend feeling really confident, feeling familiar and knowing who they are and what this Liverpool team can do going into this fixture.
It's where Virgil's massive. People like him, isn't it, Paul? Leaders in the team, people who set the standards, not just in games but in training. Their messaging is really important here.
Yeah, I think so. And you do need to look at that leadership and experience, but the majority of that team are title winners, so it's not just, doesn't just fall to Virgil. There's a lot of them that can take ownership for the situation that we found ourselves in the last couple of days. So Liverpool just need to remember who they are, and like the champions, the favourites for the Champions League, the favourites for the Premier League, or at least were. So they need to just get back to. There's a reason they were favourites. They've got an amazing squad, a great manager. They just needed to work, and finding that balance is the task for the manager for the weekend. But we can't get carried away. They're two the hardest away grounds, probably in world football. I know Galatasaray aren't on paper the best football team in the world, but it's a famous ground that you don't want to go to. And in Premier League terms, Crystal Palace is always pretty much a horrible place to go, despite our record there being pretty excellent. So we've got another one of them at the weekend. Stamford Bridge, in modern history, has been a really difficult place to go, but Liverpool have had some good results there in the past. So go there, put a show on, behave like champions, and beat them.
There we are. I can't figure out how good they are. Chelsea.
I've no idea.
It doesn't help that they keep getting someone sent off.
Yeah.
So you're not watching like games where they've got like 11 for 90 minutes. So that doesn't help. I sat down to watch the Man United game, and then obviously the keeper just gets himself sent off, and then the manager makes 3 subs.
The conditions were awful.
I know, exactly.
Funny,
I'm not really judging them too much.
I think
kind of based on that, but they've got suspensions, they've got good players out injured, so it does feel like it's not the worst time to go to Chelsea from their point of view, even if we're not going in great form.
Yeah, I think if you wanted the time to play Chelsea, this is probably the perfect weekend for various reasons, not just the injuries and suspensions they've got, but this is the first time they've done a proper international break to international break schedule in probably 2.5-3 years. when you look at them playing Champions League, they obviously have a League Cup game as well, and it was only Lincoln, but they still have to fulfil the fixture and it eats into the week and all kinds. This is seven proper games of football for them in a 3-week period, which is not something they've done, whereas we're accustomed to it. And obviously the amount of red cards they've had, as you said as well, that for energy reasons, that really doesn't help as well. So
they're very lucky to have the squad size they've got.
But, I mean, even with that, the defence they're going to have to put out is something that we should be looking at.
What do you think the defence will be? I'm not across who's injured, I must say.
Is it Achapomeyong? I can't visualise his name in my head, but it ends in A. It starts in A and finishes in G.
Okay.
And Hato, I think, who's more of a left back, centre back, and he's young and he's new and he's a bit raw. It's not. They're not in an ideal situation, are they? Like in terms of
Sanchez back in goal.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, it's a one-game ban. Yeah.
It's sort of. If you'd have said when would you like to play Chelsea, I would probably have legitimately picked this weekend out of every fixture.
They'd probably say the same though. That's what makes the fixture interesting, isn't it? Really, is like.
It'd be nice if we hadn't already been away twice this week. That's the only.
The fixtures gods haven't been kind to us, John.
They've had 3 games.
It's a great game to go and set things right, I think. And you know, it's a bit of a glamour tie, 5:30. It's going to be.
It's going to be the international break on a high as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's it. I think obviously I said before, Liverpool need to change the music, and there's no better way than going and being the best version of ourselves at the weekend, and we can all watch Married at First Sight in harmony then, John, for the next 2 weeks, can't we?
It's not on a Saturday.
Oh.
Listen, let's all be the best version of ourselves this weekend. Liverpool footballers, you guys, let's all do that. What a way to live your life. Hope you've enjoyed that midweek extra. I have a huge amount. Thanks a lot to NordVPN, for Ash and Andy for making all this happen in the back. And of course, to Phil, to Emilia and to Paul for wise words that I'm going to steal next time I'm on TV. Up the Reds.